Presidency has apologized for the errors in the list of appointments made by President Bola Tinubu since May 29, 2023. It's been reported that the presidency acted to counter the narrative about Tinubu's alleged lopsided appointments, an allegation recently made by Senator Ali Ndume, who represents the Borno South in the National Assembly. In that interview here on Arise News, Senator Ndume accused the president of violating the federal character principle by his appointments. We're now being joined by the director for the Abuja School of School and Thought, Political Thought, that is, Dr. Sam Amadi, to weigh in on the Tinubu cabinet appointment controversy, especially regarding the fact that he has copiously favored the Southwest geopolitical zones, and why equitable spread of political appointments in line with the federal character principle and constitutional requirements must be ensured. Dr. Sam Amadi, it's great to have you join us. I believe that you can hear me clearly. We were just talking about the presidency apologizing for the errors in the list of appointments made by the president and how it's been reported that the presidency acted to counter the narrative about Tinubu's alleged lopsidedness when it comes to appointments. This allegation recently made by Senator Ali Ndume. But I did mention that there are other sectors, other regions in Nigeria that have equally spoken about the same issues, predominantly in the South-South region as well, saying that there seems to be a disparity in how different regions in Nigeria are being treated. Do you agree with this narrative? And do you think that it is something that is detrimental to federal character, as we've seen Senator Ali Ndume point out in his remark about this situation?
Thank you so much for having me. Again, I think, yes, first question is that the allegations of lopsided appointment should be taken seriously because if it's true, and it looks like it's true from evidence, then it violates the Constitution. Again, let's be very clear here. Under Buhari, we had the same complaint. There has always been complaint around the imbalance in staffing of the federal government. The Nigerian politicians seem to still take the view that the provision relating to federal character is not somehow justiciable or enforceable or even obligatory. So they often take it because it's nebulous. You know, the law says it should ensure equity in the public service of Nigeria. The Federal Character Commission itself has also not been proactive in clarifying standards. The law provides for it, but they need to clarify measures. So what does that mean in sense? For example, we know that ministers have to come from, a minister must come from each state. Is that enough? How about key government positions? How do you staff, for example, the central bank? So I think that need to kind of detail out what this means. And maybe at a point, somebody will take this to court, and an intelligent court will kind of set parameters for measuring. No, the idea here is that Nigerian Union proceeds on the basis that political stability and the continuation of the federal government depends on a sense of inclusion. And they have described that inclusion to include that the public service of Nigeria should reflect that diversity. So it's both a constitutional infringement to fall short of that, and also a political error to proceed in a manner that kind of was counter to the constitutional, if you like, framework of political stability and democratic consolidation. So in one sense, I think it's important. Now, what the federal government has done, responding, is in a mode of propaganda. I mean, the errors can occur, but the notion of knocking off these allegations without first thinking through them. For example, if you give the numbers, if you have an SA for youth affairs Southeast, that's not equivalent to an SA for energy. That's not equivalent. For SA for investment, that's not equivalent. For SA for revenue. So there should be some, good sense here to say the notion of federal character is actually a notion that we want to create a Nigerian nation by superimposing a national identity on top of the multiplicities of identities. So if leaders continually, derogate from this and trivialize the idea of inclusion, they weaken the foundations of nationality and they deepen the forces that work counter to the stability of the federal government. And of course, that stability provides an enabling environment for innovative and transformative economic policy making. So this technicality that, we can somehow contrive a growing economy in a sustainable manner if we trash all the political foundations of stability is a wrong economics. And I think that we should take these concerns seriously.
Okay, briefly, Dr. Amadi, what specific constitutional remedies exist when federal character principles are violated in executive appointments?
First, the Federal Charter Commission should continually examine appointments and send message to the president in terms of memo to say, there's for example, it's evident that Southeast is left out, is obviously, violated this right. And of course, other zones can claim the same. So they should be able to first send a memo to the president to outline that this is imbalance. I'll give an example. When I was chairman of NEC, I did, before we went from procurement employment, I did a review. I discovered that 6 states, they didn't have anybody. I had to write to Mr. President, says, in line with federal character, I want to use affirmative action to recruit 6 qualified persons from this state. Because if you do exam, perhaps they may still not be able to make it. So the president gave approval and we defined the job and then they went to look for who fits it. So the idea here is Federal Charter Commission should do that. The second level of intercession here and action is the National Assembly through the Federal Charter Committee. They don't do this job. They only look at where to fit in their people into positions on the name of federal character. Their job is to do this assessment. And the resolution has said, this is a gap. This is how it can be filled. And thirdly, I think the court, these are just several provisions of the Constitution. So maybe there will be a lawyer who will take a strategic interest litigation to ask the court to set up the parameters. How do we, what does it mean? If you have 36 ministers from 36 states, and then you stack the NMPC, the central bank, the finance, all the financial institutions with people from one particular zone, have you complied? What does compliance with this mandate mean in terms of the whole public service? What are the intelligible criteria for knowing when there is a problem and what should be the remedy? I think this is a justiciable issue, and ultimately the courts, because this is also states also, this is why the governors have been very timorous in my view. Governors of Southeast, for example, that obviously are left out, carrying the leaking pot, have a right to go to court and say, so we want to say the federal government appointment does not comply, and therefore these are the declarations and mandated interventions. The federal government should fill in so places and bring in Southeasterners into these positions to create this constitutionally mandated balance. So these are the levels of intercession and actions that could make just the constitutional provision.
Well said. Dr. Sam Amadi, we'd like to thank you for your robust analysis. We appreciate you, as always, here on Newsday. Thank you.